Hey Lovebug. If you happen to be new here, my name is Mercy Yvonne. My channel is all about being the intersection between faith and fashion. So we're going to serve the Lord, baby. We're going to serve a look as well. We do want to give this week's shout out to these amazing individuals. Thank you so much for supporting my content. It is greatly appreciated. If you ever want to shout out just like them, baby, you got to talk to me in the comments. That's the way that I get to see you. I do talk back. And you can always get a shout out in any one of my future videos. Now, getting into today's video, you probably have told by the title, we are getting into our 2024 Wrapped recap video. 2024 was definitely a very interesting year. So if you want to hear more about my year, baby, go ahead, grab your list, thank you, snacks, sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. First things first, I want to talk social media. In 2023, I did start social media and I wanted to really be more intentional about creating content. And so the two main platforms that I like to kind of like highlight and keep an eye on and have really been intentional about growing has been my YouTube channel, which we are at over 200 subscribers, closer to the 300 range. So thank you so much for that. And my TikTok. We are at over 100. And I do like to highlight both of those because I started those from ground zero, like a brand new platform, just really getting into it and starting to create content. And it has been kind of my measure for really seeing where I am and how I'm growing and progressing, and also the way in which I gauge my consistency. I do believe that I'm a lot more consistent here on YouTube than probably on any other platform, and I do believe that that kind of speaks to my level of growth as well. I really have just been really focusing on pouring into my brand and creating a space for myself and really creating an actual community. And I think that I lean towards YouTube because one, I'm chatty, and two, I naturally consume a lot of long form content, and so I think it is easier to really pour and allow you all the real, true, authentic space to get to know me. And YouTube is more of a place where we can build a deeper community, and I think that's why I pour in here a little bit more. But I just really was very intentional, and I celebrated a full year of creating content in 2024. And one of the things that I was very intentional about was I want to create real content, right? We're talking about, yes, relatability, but also not just putting on for the camera, right? I wanted to make sure that I was pushing out content that I aligned with. And so I didn't want to do just a whole bunch of styling videos and it's not outfits that I'm not actually wearing in real life, or I'm doing all of this shopping and just pushing out overconsumption or all of these hauls. I was very intentional about working on brand and what I want attached to me. And I'm not gonna lie, I am a shopper. However, I don't want my brand to be overconsumption and this idea that people watch me and it's Marissa's always shopping and so I need to shop. I need to go thrifting, even if it is inexpensive or cost effective, right? Like, we know that thrifting more often than not is always tends to be a cheaper alternative than going anywhere else, right? And a lot of the stores that I shop at are also cheaper or inexpensive alternatives, right? However, I don't want you feeling like, oh, you always have to, if that's not realistic for your lifestyle, right? And so one of the things that I've always been intentional about is like the idea of ball on a budget. Work your money and shop and treat yourself based upon what is actually feasible for you, based upon what is actually what you have, right? Like, we don't have the same bills. We may not have the same responsibilities. We may not bring in the same income. And so what I can do may not be what you can do, and what you can do may not be what I can do, right? And so I want to make sure that we're assessing our own lives and we're balling accordingly, right? According to our budget and our financial limitations, right? And so really just being very intentional about that. And so that was kind of like our social media space. And I do think that I'm very proud of the progress that we are making. And I do feel like we are slowly building community, and I appreciate that. Now, getting into a more professional space as it pertains to my actual job and place of employment, this year was definitely a very interesting year for sure. It started with, I had applied to a few places, and some of them were other positions internally, like within my organization. And for the ones within my organization, I did get like some callbacks and some interviews and some meetings and things of that sort. And unfortunately, I did not get those positions. And it was very devastating at the time, at the top of the year, going through those experiences and just being like, why am I being overlooked? Why am I being rejected? Why am I being told no? That was definitely very challenging for sure. However, hindsight is kind of 2020, and now being at the end of the year, I realized what God was doing, and I remained in my same position by title, but my job responsibilities have expanded to what is equivalent to like 2 promotions this year, which also equates to a pay increase. So I have been very fortunate to have had that expansion within my current position and to really stretch myself in a space that I didn't really see myself, and I didn't know that my organization was even really going to try to dive into. And really just seeing the hand of God in that, because it's opened the door for me to learn some things that I would not have learned otherwise. And it's really connected to a field and a population of people that is very dear to my heart and has always been a part of what I feel is my overall mission statement, right? And so God has really used that in this whole experience to stretch me and to expand me. And I really have been learning so much, and definitely it has been a roller coaster of emotions, and it can get very overwhelming because no one's done this really before us, right? So I don't have a blueprint to follow. We're just creating one of our own, and that has definitely been a challenge, but it's definitely been a learning experience. And as a lifetime student, I do believe that there is so much beauty in learning, and I love to stretch myself, and this has definitely been doing that. And so I truly am grateful. Speaking of professional, I do want to say I did do some travel this year. So I went on 4 domestic trips this year. 3 of the 4 were for work, and then the other one was for ministry. Because of the expansion of my job responsibilities and duties, it opened the door for me to attend some additional work trips that I had not been privy to go to in the past. So I want to get into some like socially, mentally, emotionally type of things. So at the start of the year, unfortunately, I had to stop therapy, and that was a hit. I was not planning that. Some people stop therapy because they just feel like they no longer need it, or they've progressed from what made them, led them to therapy in the first place. That wasn't me. I had to stop because my job changed like health insurances and who we were getting our insurance through, and the new insurance was not, my therapist was not going to be able to take my new insurance, and so I had to back out. And it was disheartening, I'm not gonna lie, because I really did begin to bond. And it's like, when you enter into therapy is a very intimate experience, and there's a lot of times things that you share with your therapist that you're not telling any and everyone, and sometimes it's not always the easiest to open up to your therapist and to really pull back, those layers of that onion. And so once you begin to do that and really begin to get comfortable with this person, now I have been working with this person close to a year, right? So there was a lot that I began to divulge, and once I just couldn't continue with her, I just didn't have it in me to start over. I'm not even gonna lie to you. I didn't have the capacity to start over, and I didn't have the desire to. I do wish, because of some of the things that happened this year, I do wish that there were really moments I kept saying like, oh God, I wish I was still in therapy. Like, Lord, dang, I'm kind of upset because I really could use therapy right now, right? I really could use it right now because there were some relationships that undergone some change. Some of them I severed ties completely, and some of them it's just there were dynamic changes, and that can be hard, when you're used to things a certain kind of way, and change is not always easy. And so I do wish that there were times where I was still in therapy when those things were happening, and I really had a very neutral person to kind of talk to that's not embedded in my life, right? Because as much as I love my best friend, I talk to my best friend all the time. My best friend is indeed a sounding board. My best friend is also emotionally attached to me, some of the same people, situations, and things of that sort where it's affecting them as well. And so having a very neutral party like a therapist is very beneficial. 2024 was an election year, and I don't know if I would ever fully dive into all that I felt and experienced and all that was going on with that. But I do want to say, just always keep in mind, I think one of the hardest parts is there was a lot on the ballot. It was not just about our president. There was so much on the ballot to be discussed and digested and handled. And 2024 definitely put me in a place where I had to really identify and within myself defend and stand up for what I believe in, and really identify what that was. Like, not just believing something or having a stance or political view or even an ethical or moral view or standpoint on something because of someone else, but what do I believe as an individual? 2024 definitely was a year where I had to identify those things for myself and really see what I felt, because I'm not gonna lie, it wasn't my first time voting. However, in previous years, I was not as invested. I'm going to be honest. I did vote, but I didn't dive into research, and I wasn't as heavy into politics as I had to be this election cycle. And so it was very big. It was a very big experience for me, and it really shaped my mental, emotional, ethical, moral, and political viewpoints. And so really being solidified in where I stand and in certain issues and certain matters, and being a lot more vocal than I have also been in the past about discussing politics. Now we gonna get into Jesus. This year definitely was a stretching of my faith. I expanded a lot spiritually and relationally with my relationship with God, and there was so much in my journey and in ministry that I really dived into this year. I started teaching on a more consistent basis, and we are talking like opposite ends of the spectrum. So we're talking adults, people with some season and experience, and sometimes some of these people are more years in their walk with God than I've even been alive, right? And then also teaching like our little kitties. And it really shaped me in how I look at the word, how I study, how I prepare, because these are two very different like demographics. And when you have these young people, it's like, okay, I want to teach them right, because I want them to get the truth of God, the truth of their walk, truth of their experience, to learn the Bible, to learn the stories in the Bible, to learn about who God is and who Jesus is, right? But then you also have, these adults who have sometimes their own interpretations and perspectives on scripture and the word and the Bible. They're filled with their own experiences and their relationship with God and whatever that looks like for them, right? So really being intentional about, God, I want to make sure that I'm speaking on what you have to say, right? That I'm not leading with my thoughts, my feelings, my emotions. I'm not eisegeting but exegeting the text, right? Speaking to your true intention and content and context of what your word is saying, and what it is that you are trying to say to your people. And that is a weight. That is a weight. Carrying the gospel is a weight. And I really just had to sit in that, and sit in my walk with him and our intimacy and our connection and our covenant, to really just be like, God, it's on you. Like, I need you to speak. I need to know that I'm hearing you. I need you to walk me through and how to teach these things and to convey these words to your people. And it definitely expanded me and stretched me spiritually, and how I look at the word and ways in which the word hit me and pierced me, right? Like, it was definitely a very influential year, as it pertains to my walk with God and my walk with Christ. And I'm grateful. I truly am. I really am grateful, because there has been a lot of stretching and expanding. And I do think 2024 was a year where I did better in really putting God first in my life and my day to day. And what I mean when I say that is, sometimes we get so engulfed in life, and we wake up and we hop on our phones, and we're texting, and we're on social media, or we're answering emails, or even on phone calls or whatever. And sometimes the entire day has gone by and we never looked at our Bible once, or we never even said just thank you, Jesus, or we didn't have prayer or any time to just sit with him, or nothing, right? We're not putting on our worship music while we're getting ready, or we're not listening to sermons. And sometimes that's the truth of our experiences, right? And so being intentional that before I start my day, before I answer any texts and any email, answer any phone call, before I even get out of bed many mornings, I sit with God, and I have a devotional. I do my devotional time, and I sit with him, and I just allow that to be our time. And then I will slowly ease into the rest of my day. And so making sure that he is first and foremost, in my day to day. And I'm not going to say that I always got it right or everything, but I do think 2024 was definitely a year where I did better in this area. So getting into like thrifting and shopping, I do want to make this like its own thing, just because I enjoy thrifting and I enjoy shopping. And like I said earlier in the video, like, I'm not going to be dishonest that I don't shop. I do. I don't always record it or put it here on the internet or things like that, because I'm very mindful of the imaging that I'm portraying. However, I do shop and I do enjoy thrifting, and I've done thrift with me's and things of that sort. So you do get to see some of that. But this year I was a lot more intentional in like my shopping list and how I approached shopping. I was very intentional in making sure that I'm getting things that I really need, I really love and enjoy, and I'm eager and excited to wear. Things that merge well into my wardrobe, that align with who I am and how I want to present in life, and trying my best to be fiscally responsible, right? Financially responsible with my money, not just shopping just to shop, or, you know, a lot of these impulse buys and things like that. So, but being very intentional to steward well. And also being mindful of what I'm purchasing, because even though I am a thrifter, I'm not gonna lie, like, I do sometimes, I will pick up that Shein top that's in the thrift store, or that Fashion Nova top that's in the thrift store, those pants or whatever, because I'm like, one, I'm spending less than if I would have directly got them from the online website, and they're here. So if nobody buys them because they're Shein or Fashion Nova or whatever, it's gonna just get thrown out eventually, right? And so if I feel like this is a piece that I can actually wear and I would actually enjoy and get some use out of and have the ability to love on it, I'm gonna buy it. But I also was very intentional this year to look more at the fabrication. And so I picked up a lot of like wool and cashmere and silk and these really genuine leather. Like, we are talking some real high quality pieces. And I already try my level best to know whether it's from the dollar store or the designer store, it don't really matter. I try my level best to take care of and steward everything that I have, right? So I do my best to maintain all of my items to the best of their ability. I just want to make sure that I'm being intentional about what I'm getting. I shop primarily according to the list, which is one of the reasons why in a lot of my thrift for me's, I'm not running off with a lot of stuff, because I want to be very intentional. How often are you going to wear this? Is it going to get a few wears and you're going to get rid of it? And I've been in that place where I've had to sell or donate clothes that I had never worn. Like, never. Still had tags on them, never wore. The opportunity just never presented itself, or it never felt right to wear it. Or even if I did have something, I would end up buying something else or whatever, right? It was things that I wore maybe once, maybe twice, and got rid of. And so I wanted to be a lot more intentional about what I was bringing into my wardrobe, and also mindful, because I'm like, I don't have a huge walk-in closet, or I don't have a multiple bedroom apartment to just fill up stuff. And so I have to be very mindful and intentional about stewarding my space very well. And so I wanted to be very mindful in that while shopping. I keep a running like closet wish list, and I refer to that while shopping and being mindful of what gaps do I have, what things do I really desire, and I let them sit. And oftentimes I don't just impulse buy, and there are things that are on my wish list that will be there for months or even years before I ever purchase them. And sometimes, because it sits on my list, I'll revisit after time and be like, oh, do you still want this? And I'll just delete things because I'm like, oh, you don't really want this anymore, or whatever the case may be. And so being very intentional about how I shop, and can I style this, and is it realistic with my lifestyle? Because it makes no sense for me to have 25 cocktail dresses knowing I don't go to that many like fancy events like galas and weddings to really pull out these dresses, right? So it makes no sense. And so making sure that I'm shopping for the life that I live currently. This part of the video is for 2025, Marissa. So I got some questions, and just let us know like what happened in these areas. So did we go back to school, or at least apply for any schools this year? Did we move? Are we still in the same apartment, or did we move? Did we get back into therapy? How is social media going? Did TikTok really get banned? Did you do any travel or trips this year? Did you get your passport? Cause girl, we need to do that. By the time that you're watching this, you would have turned 29. You are nearing 30. How are you feeling about that? Any additional updates on like where you are in life, professionally, anything you want to update us on? How did you do on documentation? Because 2024, we realized we did not do a lot of documentation on like food, experiences, solo dating, all of that. So how did you do this year? Are you writing again? Like, have you been writing, either journaling or really getting back into poetry? Have you been doing any of that? And how are you spiritually? Have you been doing a lot more fasting and expanding in the area of study? And so I am so excited for you to update me on how everything is going for us. I'm so excited. 2024 was definitely a year. And if I had to rate it on a scale of 1 to 10, I probably have to give it like I'll give it a 7.8. Like, it it had its highs and lows for sure. But I can definitely say all is well, right? Like, it definitely had its challenges, and there's some questions, some guessing, and some uncertainty, and all of these things. And there's definitely been some healing and some tears and heartbreak and sadness and all these things. But at the end of the day, life is well and God is good. And one thing that came out of this, and I really have held on to this, especially after the election, I really have to say to myself, like, though there was so much on the ballot, one thing that was not on the ballot was God's sovereignty. God is still God. He is still good. He is still on the throne. He is still in charge. And I just hope that brings you some comfort as we are getting ready to enter into 2025, as it has really brought me this year, because God has really just been like, I got you. And I need you to trust that I got you. Like, that's it. So as our 2024 chapter comes to a close, I'm really just praying for God's best for you and God's best for all of us, honestly, as we get ready to enter into 2025. The uncertainty of any new year and not really knowing what the year is going to bring, and just praying for God's best. And I just love to push that, because no matter what our dreams are, or what we want to accomplish, or our vision board, or our timeline, what God has for us is truly what's best. And no matter what we want for ourselves, no matter how much the people connected to us and love us want for us, it's always going to pale in comparison to what God's will for our lives is, and what it is that He has in store for us. And so I'm really just praying God's best for you and in this new year. And if you are not on this walk with Jesus, I pray that you get to know Him and really begin to walk with Him. If you are, pray for your strength on this journey, as we know it is not an easy one. And so I'm really just praying God's best. My grandfather used to always say that if you keep your eyes fixated on Jesus and you keep Him as your center and your focus, that He will blow your mind. He will begin to give you things that you never even thought of or imagined to ever ask Him for. And so I'm just grateful. I'm grateful for who God is. I'm grateful for what He's doing. I'm grateful for the ways in which He shows up. And this year as a whole really has taught me to be grateful for His protection. Because one of the things about this year that God really had to deal with me on is, I'm going to protect you by any means necessary. And sometimes that even means protecting you from yourself. And knowing that the moments where He said no, or not right now, or not this, He had other things in store for me. And He had to make sure that I was ready and in a position to be able to steward it well. And that has really been the theme of 2024 for sure, is stewardship. And so I'm grateful for all the highs and lows of this year. I'm grateful for I'm trying not to get emotional, but I'm grateful for the ways that I've seen God's hand on this year, and just the way in which He has showed up. And so I don't want to make this video too long, and it probably already is, but thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for supporting me this year. Welcome to the Lovebug tribe. Any new members, we are so happy to have you here. And that is all for today's video. I hope to see you back here next week for another one. But until then, remember that I love you. God loves you. So remember to always, and I do mean always, love you too. Happy New Year and smooches, Lovebug.